Greetings, students and parents. I would like to welcome you to the Ridgefield Prevention Council's Have the Talk program. This event would not be possible without the RPC and Tina Malhotra and Kim Carone, who worked diligently to put the program together. Also, many thanks to all of our presenters who you will learn more about this evening. Fundamentally, the program is about helping students to avoid mistakes in life. Not all mistakes are bad. We learn from mistakes every single day. Missing a homework assignment, being late, excluding others, these are mistakes that we'll all make and learn from. The mistakes we want students to avoid are the big ones that can alter the course of their life. Through this program, you're going to hear many stories about how underage drinking and drugs have resulted in mistakes that have altered or ended the lives of others. Students, our speakers are sharing these past mistakes so you can learn from them and have a better future. Author Rick Warren states that we learn from our past, but we don't have to be prisoners to it. I ask that you listen and learn. We want every one of you to have a happy and healthy future free from these big mistakes. And parents, when this program concludes, you're once again alone with your child. We urge you to have the talk about the information you heard here about the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse. Again, thank you to the RPC, as well as all the presenters who graciously have donated their time and stories. Have a great event.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Today, we're going to talk about a couple of topics regarding student behavior over the years. I've been here many years, and from day one, it's gotten a lot better. When I first started here years ago, the students would kind of keep me really busy between the vandalism, graffiti, to the drugs, to the alcohol, to the fighting that takes place here over the years. But since me being here and the kids getting to know me a little bit better, from me coaching in the community and the kids trusting me and understanding that, hey, I'm not just a cop in here walking the beat, with a gun and looking to make arrests. I'm here to help them out in any situations that I can. So that's great. So over the years, the kids gotten to know me and they appreciate me being here, which is awesome. And the behavior of them is much, much better. Years ago, I'd walk down the hallways and they'd call me pig, 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 oink, oink, oink. To today, they call me Coach, Popo Luis, Officer Luis. They even call me by my first name. And at times I have to stop them and say, this is professional. It's Officer Luis, which is great. But the behavior of the kids have been great. They're here to get their educational time and they don't want to miss out on that. So over the years, these kids realize that, by them doing something wrong here at school, they can get suspended, in school or out of school, and they don't like that. So they try to do the right thing, and unfortunately, there are times that there are kids that partake in situations that, that needs addressing through the deans of students, the administration, or myself. And but over the years, it's been great. And a handful of dealings throughout the year, that's okay compared to years ago when it was an everyday event. The drugs and the alcohol here at the school doesn't take place as much as years ago. So again, it goes back to the kids want to be here at school. They want to be here. They don't want to miss out. And they've been great with that. So, the kids are glad to be back. I was talking to them the other day in the student center and I asked them if they're okay coming back to school. And they're like, yeah, we were dying for this to come back. And, we have to wear our masks, but it's okay. We'd rather be here at school. I want to see my friends. I want to see my teachers live instead of through Zoom. So it's been fantastic. So it's good to see their faces, and back to building relationships with them. And so it's fantastic. Another question that they came up was the vaping in school. It does happen. Since COVID, it's kind of like died down. You very rarely catch kids, very rarely catch a kid or two vaping in the bathroom or, hallways or wherever it might be. Prior to COVID, yeah, there was quite a bit of vaping, because that was a new thing. Kids were like, ooh, it's vaping. Let's experiment with this. Let's try it. So it's going to die down, and it is. I see it now. From when it first started, it was like everybody was doing it. It's like, oh, they all had to try it. But lately, kids are being smart about it. They're realizing the health effects from it. So they're partaking to not do it anymore. Cigarettes, man, I don't think I've seen a kid smoke a cigarette here at school probably in the last 5 years, 6 years. I've never seen a student smoke a cigarette. And the last time I saw one, I approached them. I'm like, is that a cigarette that you're smoking? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, wow, who smokes cigarettes nowadays? And these kids started laughing. But yeah, so cigarettes here at school, very rarely do you ever see one. I haven't seen one in about 5-6 years. Every kid the kids partake in the vaping situations. But that has been dying down since COVID, and which is a good thing for COVID, about the only good thing for COVID here at the school. I'm just going to show you a little container that I collect over the years, and these are all the vaping pens, and it's a full. And we collect them, and at times we'll have to test them because we believe that some of these vaping pens contain THC. That's the marijuana wax. So I will test that, and if it does come positive, then we have to deal with the deans and students, and then eventually we'll come on to my end, and then I have to deal with that. And they have to deal with me as well. So, but the kids know that I'm here as their friend. I'm here to help them out. I'm building relationships with them, and at times they'll cross that line. I'll have to do my job, which unfortunately stinks. That's the worst part of my job, is to do my job. So we'll talk about little quick parties. Do parties take place here in Ridgefield? I'm going to say yes. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. Parties do take place, and that as kids will always partake in that. Hopefully through education and me going into health class and parents and helping out with, talking to the kids to tell them to do the right thing. We can, kind of curb it, but kids are being smarter nowadays, talking to them, they'll use safe rides. They'll call for parents, sleepovers. They'll stay over to the house instead of taking that chance of driving home or leaving with their friends. And that's one thing I emphasize when I teach health class is like, never leave with somebody because you don't know if they've been drinking, and never leave if you've been driving because you don't know how intoxicated you are. You might think you're fine, you're able to drive, but you're really not. You're impaired. So please do not drive home. I always say, call for a ride. Call for your parents, okay? Or better yet, when you go to these events and you see that there's alcohol or drugs, I recommend when I teach a health class is to walk in and walk out. Get out of that situation before it gets sticky and something happens. And I tell them, you don't want to be there when something happens because someone's in trouble. Kids will offer you alcohol. Be honest and just tell them you don't partake in that. You don't drink. They're not going to yell at you. They're not going to laugh at you. They're going to respect that. And just by telling them the truth, that's the way to go. Okay. So my recommendation to mom and dad is just be there for them and tell them always call home for a ride. Worry about the consequences later. Talk about it the next day. Don't talk about it then. Talk about it the next day and address the situation. So I don't want to get too much more into the parties, only because Detective Youth Officer Tom Dardis is going to cover the laws, who's at fault, who's responsible if a situation arises at a party. There's injuries and that nature. So Mr. Dardis will take care of that. So I want to thank everyone. I'm here at school to build relationships with your kids. If there's anything that I could do for you guys, mom and dad, I'm here at the school. Please reach out to me. I'm just a phone call away, and I'll answer anything any concerns that you might have. We can address it. We can talk to it. Tell your kids to come and say hi to me during school. Again, or we'll see you when in traffic in the morning when you guys get stuck in traffic coming in. So you could wave and say, I saw the video, and that's it. So have a good night. We'll talk to you soon, and I'm just a phone call away. Take care. Bye.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Detective Tom Dardis. I work with the Ridgefield Police Department in Connecticut here. And I was asked to put a little presentation together about social hosting and possession of alcohol by minors. Very passionate about that topic. We've had a number of serious incidents in this town since I started here many years ago. So I was happy to put this together and get this information out. A little bit, just real quick about me. I've been with the Ridgefield Police Department for about 17 years now. And right now my primary focus is on youth crimes, whether they are victims or offenders. So that's pretty much what I do here. I do a little bit of adult investigations as well, but primarily youth investigations. So some of the questions that were asked of me to go over were with regard to social hosting and possession of alcohol by minor. Those questions were: who's liable, how to report known parties, who gets in trouble, what's the penalty for possession or hosting, and is there anything I can do to help parents understand that they are ultimately responsible, could be ultimately responsible for anything that happens in their house. So there's a lot going on there. So before I break those down and answer each one of them, I'd like to cover just a little bit on Connecticut law on possession of alcohol by minor and social hosting. So we'll talk a little bit about what the law is. It can be broken down into basically two different categories, possibly three, and I'll tell you why. You've got possession of alcohol by minor, which we'll cover, and then fail to halt liquor to minors. So those are the two specific laws dealing with juveniles or youths having a party, right? So possession of alcohol is pretty much possession of alcohol by minors. It's somebody under the age of 21 who physically is in possession of alcohol. The fail to halt liquor to a minor would be more on the parental side, or a legal guardian that knows the party's going on, or possibly even provided the alcohol or facilitated, the alcohol to be present at the party. There's also a third component in here that sometimes can be brought in, and that's risk of injury to a minor. And that really steps up this crime to the next level. So real quick, I'm just going to cover the statutes and what the actual statute numbers are, so that you can reference them. The first ones are possession of alcohol by minor. They basically prohibit any minor to have possession of alcohol. Once again, minor is anybody under 21. To be in possession of alcohol either on a public street or highway or in a private location. And those are covered under Connecticut General Statute 30-89. You'll find that the offenses carry penalties that range from infractions to actual jail time, depending on the severity of those crimes. So typically the infractions are people that are over 18 and over, because in Connecticut, we can't issue infractions to juveniles for these crimes. They have to actually go to court. But if you're 18 and over, those infractions might be anywhere from $136 on up to $500. If you haven't obtained your driver's license yet, you could be dealing with a 150-day delay of your driver's license. Or if you already have your driver's license, you could be dealing with a 30 to 60-day license suspension if you're found to be in possession of alcohol by minor. So that pretty much covers those, possession of alcohol by minor. The fail to halt liquor is found under 3089, 3089A, subsection A. This is a little bit more serious of a crime. It's a Class A misdemeanor. There's no ticket involved in this. It's a Class A misdemeanor, the most serious level of misdemeanors. And the penalty could be anywhere from up to a $2,000 fine to a year in jail. So it gets pretty serious at this point. The last crime that we're dealing with is risk of injury to a minor. And what that is basically you're taking somebody who's 15 and under and putting them in a dangerous situation. So it doesn't just include alcohol. It could be, the spectrum is very wide on this. But it does include youth parties. So if you're hosting, if you're a youth or an adult that's hosting, or if you're providing alcohol, or just have somebody there that's that age, you could be facing even a felony, which is obviously quite serious. And this is something that a lot of people don't think about, because they just think, oh, it's our friends coming over, it's not really a big deal. But once you get into that situation where somebody's a younger age, then it becomes a more serious crime. So that's a very brief overview of the actual statutes. Now I'll go into some of or actually all of the questions that were asked of me. First question was, who's liable? Okay. Now this is kind of a tough question for me to answer in a short amount of time, but typically when I speak to parents about youth parties, specifically about parents either knowing or allowing or turning the other way, turning a blind eye to it, the sentiment is usually, at least my kids and their friends are home, I can control the situation, or what could go wrong, they're in my environment, they're in my house, I'm going to take the keys, this sort of thing. So the first thing that I would tell a parent is that hosting or failing to halt liquor to a minor, it's illegal. You can't do it. You shouldn't be doing it. Going back to the question of who's liable, if a parent hosts the party, then they would be both criminally and possibly civilly liable for criminal law and civil liabilities here. I'm not a civil attorney, so I'm not going to speak to the civil end of it, but I would imagine that if you caused any damage to youth as a result of violating a criminal law, you'd be civilly liable as well. Like I said, that the penalties could be anywhere from a Class A misdemeanor all the way up to the felony of risk of injury to a minor, depending on the age of the kids that are at the party. For any minors hosting the party, the charge is essentially the same, except for depending on their age. If they're 17 and younger, it's going to be handled in juvenile court. If they're 18 and over, it's going to be handled in adult court. So that's really the difference there. So who's liable? It could be anybody from the parent knowing or should have known. It could be the youth that is hosting the party. He or she could be liable, or it could be, failing to halt, just saying, hey, you didn't make a reasonable effort to stop the party. And it also could be anybody at the party that's physically in possession, found to be in possession of alcohol when law enforcement arrives. So it's kind of a dynamic situation, obviously, when law enforcement arrives there. So next question was how to report parties. Wasn't really sure where whoever was asking this question was going with this, or the direction they wanted it to go in. But in my mind, if you're a parent or if you're a youth, you're having a party and it starts to get out of control, you realize alcohol is being brought there. Oftentimes people will start with just inviting a couple friends, and then it grows into this event that's unmanageable by them. I know it sounds crazy, but I would phone the police and say, I had a small gathering at the house and it's gotten out of control. Somebody brought alcohol and I need help. The point is not to get these kids to take off and run or get in their cars and drive or out on foot. The point is to get everybody home safely. When our officers here go to a call, typically they find one person responsible for hosting a party. They don't typically go after each individual youth at the party and write out tickets for everybody who had or could have had a beer in their hand or an alcoholic beverage in their hand. The reason we do that is we don't want the kids to run. We don't want them to get into cars to drive. We want to, control the situation as much as we can and have everybody get home safely. So if that answers the question, I hope it does, call us and ask for help. We handle a lot of these. We try to just get kids home as safe as possible and just pick one person to hold responsible for the parties. the other goal is here is to prevent the party from happening in the first place. So if you can do that, that's obviously, if you see somebody bringing alcohol to the party, it's not going to end well. So you might want to ask for help, whether it's an adult or even us. The third question is who gets in trouble. That's something I think we covered pretty well just a couple seconds ago. It really just depends. It could be the host of the party. It could be if we find somebody who's underage just in possession, out in public, they might get a ticket or get a juvenile summons to court, depending on how old they are, or a citation to pay a fine if they're over 18. So the spectrum's a little wide there. Penalties we covered. That was question number 4. What was the penalty? Anywhere from a citation with a fine if you're 18 to 21 or under 21 and over 18, or a juvenile arrest if you're under the age of 18, and if you're a parent, it could be a misdemeanor, Class A misdemeanor, on up to a felony, depending on the severity and the age of the kids at the party. And the last question was something that definitely rings true to me. I've had this question a lot from parents. I don't understand. I don't know why. I guess that I think most parents are trying to be more of a friend than a parent to their kids. And the question is, there's anything I can do to help parents understand that they are ultimately responsible for what happens at their house. The biggest thing that I hear from parents is that, like I said earlier, they can control it. They're going to take the keys. They know their kids are at their house. They can be safe. Everybody's going to sleep over. But my advice to them is, not only is it illegal, and there's a huge possibility that you could be held criminally liable for this, but you can't possibly control every single situation. There are kids that will want to leave in the middle of the night. There are kids that will possibly get too sick to be able to help themselves. We can go on and on with the possibilities. There have been many parties in our town alone throughout my career here where people have left the party and did not make it home. And there have been many parties where they have been driving, didn't make it home. They've been walking and didn't make it home. And sadly, their family is without their family member for the rest of their lives. I don't want to seem overly dramatic about this, but this is the truth. So, if you are allowing your kids to have these parties, or you're turning the other eye, turning a blind eye, turning the cheek to it, you're setting them up for serious failure. And it's a failure that has happened many times in the past that could end up in someone's death. Again, not to be overly dramatic, but that's the truth. Being a cop for 23 years, I've seen it too many times, and it's really unnecessary. So I hope that answers a few of the questions that y'all have on hosting a party or possession of alcohol by minor. If there are any further questions, or if you'd like to get in a little bit more detail on this, or just want a more of a discussion on it, please feel free to reach out to me. Once again, my name is Detective Tom Dardis with the Ridgefield Police Department, and thanks for having me.
My name is Maddox. I'm here speaking about social hosting today, and I'll tell a little bit about myself. When we listen to folks, I think it's important to have some understanding of, why should I listen to this guy? I own 2 small law firms in New Canaan. One is the Maddox law firm, where we focus exclusively on criminal defense, and the other is the Connecticut Auto Accident Law Group, and that firm focuses on very serious life-altering injury litigation. And I'll tell you that the work that we do in both firms definitely dovetails with the topic today, social hosting. I began becoming interested in prevention, in helping adolescents, helping families to understand about substance use, alcohol abuse, drug use, and how that really can complicate lives and harm lives and get them, of course, involved in the court system. So we're going to talk about social hosting today. I'm going to speak first about how this and what the involvement is for younger people, underage people who are organizing gatherings at homes and other places. I'm also going to speak about parents and their involvement. I'm going to speak about both criminal and civil liability for both groups. And the civil liability is something that people don't often talk about. So let's talk about just kids. All right. We are, as human beings, we're very, very social animals, and our younger people are very, very social. They need to spend time together. And of course, they're gathering in homes. And I think that right now, with hopefully COVID subsiding and restrictions reducing, I think we're going to see a resurgence of social gatherings, particularly younger people at home. So some things that I'd like you to consider, both for the young people who are watching as well as for parents. When you're organizing a party, when you're organizing some gathering at your home, there's a right way to go about this and there's a wrong way to go about this. We know that these gatherings can become really, really out of hand because of promotion on social media. More and more people will show up. More and more people show up who aren't invited. People show up who are bringing alcohol, and things quickly grow out of control. Soon neighbors are calling because of cars and driveways and because of noise, and the police show up. So let's just take a step backwards. How do you organize these gatherings in order to be safe and smart and to avoid the police showing up at your door? Well, I'd like to see people, and I know this sounds hard, I know this doesn't sound easy, but I'd like to see people, underage people, kids, parents, think about really having a absolute fixed guest list. And that when the invitations are going out, when the talk is around, I know it's not invitations, but when you're talking about this, make sure that you have a fixed list. When you're at the door and people are coming to your home, it's a good idea to have only one door that people come through. Is a person on the list? Again, I know this doesn't sound easy, but is a person on your list? And are they carrying anything? If they're carrying anything, any bags, any backpacks, they stay at the door. There's a designated area where everybody gathers. And parents, if you are involved in this, like it or not, you've got to be a chaperone and you've got to be continually checking that area where everyone is located in your home. We have cases in both of our law firms where there's alcohol and marijuana and other stuff gets handed through basement windows. You just have to be vigilant as parents and keep on checking the area where the gathering is happening. So, and let's also talk about some of the legalities involved and some misconceptions. People don't understand that even if you're underage, even if you are a minor, you can still be charged with distribution or transfer of alcohol to a minor. That's an unclassified felony, punishable by more than a year in jail if you're going to go to trial and if you lose a trial. That isn't to scare people, but it's so they understand the magnitude of what's involved when even a minor transfers alcohol to another minor. And that means just handing it. That means bringing, a six-pack, a suitcase, a keg, whatever it is, bringing a handle of Bacardi, bringing a handle of vodka to a house. That's transfer of alcohol to a minor. And that also, we start to invoke some of the consequences and some of the behavior that involves the statute of risk of injury to a minor. That's a C felony, punishable after 10 years in jail. So this is serious stuff. We have to think about some of the misdemeanors as well. And those include allowing minors to possess alcohol or failing to prevent minors from possessing alcohol. Those are both misdemeanors. They start with an infraction. They can become a misdemeanor. I know I'm saying a lot. I'm probably speaking quickly. I want to get as much information out to you as possible. Here's the other really, really, I'll call this kind of the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that the collateral consequence, and that is oftentimes an article, particularly if you are over the age of 18. If you're over the age of 18, there is going to be an article in the Ridgefield Patch, whatever Ridgefield publications may exist, maybe other publications online. And many police departments even release mugshot photos of people who are 18 and older, as well as a description of the conduct. And it's that collateral consequence which we work so hard on here, even after resolution of a case, even after dismissal and erasure, to try to prevail upon media outlets to remove or what's called de-index those pieces. But it's a tremendously damaging aspect of these arrests, these summonses to court, is the what happens in the media and the publishing of photographs, publishing of articles about 18 years and older people who do these social hosting, get involved in these parties, and then they get either summoned to court or arrested. If you're a juvenile, of course, Connecticut law says that there can be no publication of your name under these consequences or your photograph, but you are summoned to juvenile court. The parents are involved every step of the way. The parent has to attend court appearances. You're supervised by juvenile probation. It is a long and sometimes very arduous process. And stepping outside of my role as an attorney, if you will, we've had to, as I said, we get involved in prevention. We represent a lot of families. We represent a lot of young people. And part of our mission is to help people not come back to us. And one of the things that really concern us is, frankly, the emotional and mental health consequences of an arrest on a young person. It is a damaging event and can be very, very troubling for a young person and a family. So again, these are some of the collateral consequences I think that oftentimes are not spoken about when we talk about social hosting. And of course, social hosting often, very tragically, sometimes involves injuries, illness, involves alcohol, poisoning. We've had young people induced into comas after horribly exceeding their alcohol, potential tolerance. They become despondent, they become non-communicative, and they leave a house in an ambulance. And that can lead to really, really horrible, terrible criminal liability, but also the civil liability I spoke about earlier. We represent on both sides of those tragedies. We represent homeowners and families and defendants, and we also represent people as plaintiffs, people who have suffered life-altering, truly tragic consequences, cognitive impairments, brain injuries as a result of leaving a party drunk, horribly intoxicated, and either injuring themselves or injuring others. Again, I know there's a lot of information I'm pouring out here. We have in Connecticut what's called the Dram Shop Act. Dram Shop imposes strict liability. In other words, you don't have to show negligence. And the Dram Shop Act says that if someone is served alcohol and the person who serves the alcohol, including a private homeowner or resident of a home, if they have reason to know that that person is intoxicated and that person then goes out and either damages property, injures someone else, kills someone else, there's automatic liability on the part of the server of the alcohol. And that begs the question about civil litigation and lawsuits that have to do with negligent failure to supervise and the terrible financial consequences of long-term medical care. Now, let's just move over to another topic or something that we really need parents to understand is that event when police come to your door and what the parents' liability is. I would say that, as recently as maybe 7-8 years ago, it was more practically plausible for parents to say, I didn't know there was a party going on. I didn't know that my kids were going to be gathering and there might be alcohol in the home. That's becoming a much more difficult defense now that there is more common knowledge amongst our communities about parties and what happens. And so as parents, if you have reason to know, and this is circumstantial evidence normally. What do police observe when they come on a scene? If there are large amounts of alcohol, beer cans in the yard, and lots of cars around, and the parents are either nearby or in a section of the home, and they claim that they didn't know that there was a party, that's a terribly difficult argument to make. And police departments are becoming much more willing to arrest parents in circumstances where it appears as though the parents either knew or should have known of the party. And then, of course, we're talking again about, the Ridgefield patch and photographs and articles and all the collateral consequences of that arrest. Never mind defending of the arrest, and never mind the civil consequences, the the litigation, the lawsuits that can come out of that social hosting. As I said earlier, that's the first time that there is a charge. It can be an infraction, but it can also be a misdemeanor, depending upon the circumstances. So there is a lot to consider when it comes to social hosting. There is a great deal to take on board, both for adolescents and for adults. I often say that the legal part of the work that we do, the defense work and the advocacy, I often say that as difficult as it can be sometimes, it actually is the easy part compared to getting to the heart of the matter. Is there an alcohol use or is there a substance dependency issue that has driven this event? And if there has been, how do we have a frank and open and transparent and non-judgmental conversation about those circumstances so that the family and the son or daughter or others are not coming back to our law firm? How do we move them forward? How do we collaborate with other professionals so that health is restored, so that the young person can thrive? And so the only reason why they need lawyers in the future is to build their empire. That's what we want to see here. And that's what I think we want to see in Ridgefield, in our surrounding communities. We want to see ways to get to the bottom of issues, resolve them, address them, air them out, cure them, and then move our adolescents and our families forward.